Welcome to the Building Texas Business Podcast, where we share stories of leadership, innovation, and success from business leaders who know what it takes to build great organizations. Building Texas Business is brought to you by Boyer Miller, providing counsel beyond expectations. Learn more about how Boyer Miller helps businesses navigate opportunity and growth with clarity and confidence at boyermiller.com. Now, here's your host, Chris Hanslik.
In this episode, you will meet Roe Patterson, co-founder and managing partner of Marauder Capital. Roe has 30 years experience in the oil and gas industry, and he will tell you that in building and selling several companies, he did it because he focused his teams on having a strong work ethic and always looking to do the next right thing. Roe, I want to thank you for taking time to come on Building Texas Business. It's great to have you here. Let's start just by introducing yourself to the listeners. Tell us what are the company you're involved in now? I know you've been involved in several. So tell us just a little bit about yourself and the companies you're affiliated with.
Well, I've got affiliated with several at the moment. Built several businesses after I stepped down as a CEO of a public company in late 19. And I had to wait out a non-compete and oilfield services, and then kind of got back into oilfield services, started putting together, unsponsored businesses with my capital from friends and family, just places where I saw dislocation, and I thought that it'd be a good opportunity to put some businesses in the way I wanted to put them in, kind of leaving the public market and going back into the private sector and doing
Sure.
things I thought, where there were just opportunities. And then 2 years ago, my partner and I decided to form our own private equity fund.
Okay.
And so we're doing things in the fund today, and that's Marauder Capital. And we invest in production services in the energy business. So anyway, that's what I do today. But I've had a long 30-year career in the oil field and in energy. Kind of grew up in energy with my family, being in the business, and so I had a strong pull to come back after college to go back into the business, and ran several of my own companies, sold them, and then landed with a public company, and worked my way up to CEO of that company. And I've done multiple M&A transactions over my career. I think I'm up to like 130 something transactions.
Wow. Okay.
So a lot of buying and selling different businesses, a lot of building businesses, building teams. And now I'm kind of at the point in my career, I guess now, where I'm more of a coach or a guy in the press box. I'm not on the field anymore.
I got you.
Which is, a good spot to be in. But now I just, try to help different teams. I'm on the board of multiple companies. I'm on a board of another public company. So just try to be, an industry voice, of a guy who's, faced some of the challenges that they face on a daily basis, and, coach them through all of the good times and the bad times.
Kind of take that experience you've learned, kind of seeing it from the ground up, right? And using it to help the next generation.
And unfortunately, the energy business is one of those businesses where we see a lot of cyclicality. So, knowing how to manage and run your business and in the bad times is just as important, maybe more, than being able to run them when things are good.
Oh, for sure. So you mentioned a minute ago you started kind of your own oilfield service company. I think you mentioned you saw some dislocation in the industry. Is that company, you still affiliated with that?
Yeah, I still have those. I call them, pre-fund or a portfolio, and still running a couple of those businesses, and really more in a board position, chairman role, and helping those teams, manage those businesses, and helping them with capital allocation, and where to go next and what to do next, and where to build, where to grow, where to maybe sell, and and back off. One of the hard things most business owners have is knowing when to quit or when to say, hey, this isn't working. We got to try something different.
It's a challenge, right? Because the entrepreneur typically is so invested that they figure they can make anything work, and sometimes it's important to know what to stop doing, right?
Right. Yeah, it's probably as important or more, especially when it comes to things like leverage or debt,
capital resources,
capital allocation. You got to know when to say fold them, and walk out. And in our business, that's probably one of the toughest things to do, because by and large, people in the energy business are entrepreneurialistic. They're aggressive.
Risk takers.
They're risk takers. I always say they're a bunch of hammers. Everything looks like a nail to them. They want to keep grinding away. And so and sometimes when you look at you take a step back and you really look at the battlefield from a different position, saying that's enough, or we got to change this dramatically, and really revolutionize the way we're thinking about this is a hard thing to do.
Sure.
But you can't ever get in one of those ruts where you just keep repeating yourself over and over, beating your head against the wall and never really seeing a different outcome. At some point you've got to say, hey, we've got to re-strategize.
Yeah. So let's just talk about the more recent, I guess, companies. What was some of the dislocation? Because in the clients we serve, very similar to you, entrepreneurial, they've been in any kind of industry. Most saw some gap, some dislocation based on whatever they've been doing, and decided that there's an opportunity here that I'm going to go take advantage of. What was the dislocation that you saw that you tried to take advantage of with this new company?
Well, they're different in every single company, right? If we felt like there was a product or a service offering that was being underserved by the market, and we knew based on new technologies or based on sort of the methodology in drilling for oil and gas in the lower 48, obviously shale production has been, and horizontal shale production has been the newest advance that we've seen in our sector. So, just trying to think 2 or 3 jumps ahead of what everyone is going to need when it comes to whether it be products or service offering or to enhance efficiency gains.
Yeah.
So obviously cost is one of the biggest things that our customers and our companies deal with. And so if we can figure out a way to be more automated, more efficient, we feel like we can bring some sophistication or technological advance to a particular segment of the industry, then that's what we ought to be doing. Lower lifting costs for the producers, so that even with the cyclicality in pricing, they're still making a good return on their capital and a good margin. So if we can find ways to do those things and create those efficiency gains, that's probably the place we look first. For instance, we have a midstream water company, and one of the things we saw when we got into that business was that most of those businesses were built around kind of a hub and spoke model, where you'd put a saltwater disposal well in a certain location to gather wastewater within the industry, and it was primarily serviced by trucking fleets.
Yeah.
And those are expensive to run. They're high risk. You're on the road every day with the general public, and so it's hard to insure. Insurance costs very high in the heavy hauling industry, and so we were under the impression that if we could create infrastructure or pipelines to move that water, we'd be much more efficient. We'd save the producer dollars, and it would be less risky. So we went about trying to build out that infrastructure and tie in as much pipe to our saltwater disposal network as we could. And we built redundancy into that so that if one well went down, other wells could take the water. And there's a lot of automation, telemetry that goes into that. But it essentially you could cut the water cost for a producer in half if you could get the water barrels on pipe versus trucking. And that's just one example
Yeah.
of what we were trying to do. Another business we had or have is we just tried to bring a lot of sophistication to what was kind of an older industry, hadn't really experienced a lot of technological leaps.
Mhm.
So we tried to bring things like a lot of digital data acquisition from the field so that we could process everything faster, whether it be payroll or payables, receivables, whether it would be time tracking, and then trip times. What were we doing in the field at the time, and why does it take this rig longer to do it than this rig, and what are they doing different? And really dig into the analytics.
Okay.
And so now all of those things are really taking off within the industry, and AI is going to do nothing but feed into that because it gives us one more tool to analyze
Yeah.
data and to spit that out of where we see inefficiencies or gaps or something that we can go make better.
Are you having to build your own AI models so that you can manage the confidentiality of the information for your clients? Or
At sometimes there's in the industry we call that tight hole, where no one wants anyone to know what they're doing,
Right.
and if they're doing it better, they want to keep the secret to themselves. But a lot of that information is pretty generic, and we can share it, and we can share improvements across the vendor or customer space,
Yeah.
and we can work together, even with some of our competitors, to make things a little better in the industry. And obviously, safety is a huge concern. We always
Sure.
want to keep people in the same condition that they came to work in.
Right.
Want to send them home to their families healthy, and so if we could do anything to enhance the safety aspect of what we do every day, that's critical.
Yeah, makes sense. So you talked a lot about innovation, which is great. As you're growing these companies and I guess moving into that executive kind of chair position, what role are you playing to try to help the leadership, develop and build a culture in the company? And what are some of the things that you've seen in your experience, as elements of a culture that leads to the success that those companies have seen?
Well, I think the first thing you want to do when you kind of start interface with a management team, whether it be someone you just acquired or you just invested in, or someone you hired off the street to come and run something for you, is to instill that work ethic of you're only as good as the leadership will only be as good as they perform. If they work hard and they're dedicated and they show a lot of care for what they do every day, it'll trickle down. So the first thing we have to do is work ethic, and then the second thing is just ethics in the business. Period. If it's not good for uh, all of the stakeholders involved, don't do it.
Right.
So the customer has to win, the company has to win, the vendors have to be taken care of. A lot of people leave vendors out from time to time.
All right.
Advisors and different people that you interact with, whether you're buying products or parts or pieces from them, you've got to take care of them. Employees are at the top of the list. They're your best assets.
Right.
Doesn't matter what you do or what business you're in, your employees are going to be your best assets. Training, so we spend a lot of money trying to train people and make sure we're sending people out to do whatever business we're doing with the most knowledge we can possibly fill them with, so that they can provide as good a service as possible,
Yeah.
and that they're taking care of everybody else, at a job site. They're not only their own employees, but third parties they interact with too. But I think ethics is probably one of the things we focused most on in a culture. Is do the right thing, treat people the way you want to be treated. It sounds cliche, but it really works in business.
Sure.
A handshake still got to mean something. So, just do the next right thing is a big part of what we try to instill from a cultural standpoint.
And I think one of the things you mentioned earlier, it's got to start from the top and go down and be consistent. Uh, anything that you do to, from a training standpoint, onboarding and maybe then that consistency throughout to reinforce those tenets and those kind of core, what I would call core values of integrity and ethics, work ethic, et cetera.
Well, first of all, we take, new hire training very, very serious. So it doesn't matter who you worked for, how many years you've been in the industry, you're new to us. And so you need to know the way we do things. What are our policies and procedures?
Yeah.
How are we going to handle each curveball that the industry is going to throw at us? How do we react? When do we go up the chain of command to ask for permission to modify a procedure or something like that? The worst thing you can do is have guys, employees in the field, try to do it on the fly and improvise and make decisions without consulting. We're a team,
Right.
so let's all get together as a team, put our heads together. It's always good to stop the job, slow it down, put our heads together, come up and make sure we've got the best plan picked for everyone involved.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we train hard on. And then recurring training, the cliche is you can never teach an old dog new tricks. And there's some truth to that, but
especially in the oil field.
But you can remind them of the right way to do things. And it never hurts people to go back through training. Pilots do it, doctors do it, lawyers do it,
Yep.
And accountants do it. They go back through training on a regular basis so that they can provide the best service possible. Well, we should do that in every industry, in my opinion. So we do a lot of recurring training, so I think that's important. The cultural piece, if you carry yourself and you try to treat customers, vendors, even competitors the way you want to be treated, that tends to be something people pick up on and they notice quickly. So we try to always instill into our employee base, no matter which company we're talking about, that are doing the right thing. It matters, and it'll trickle down. That'll affect everybody. And that culture of doing the right thing was something I learned early on from my father and my uncle, who were mentors of mine. And they tried real hard just to be honest, and hardworking. If they beat you, they wanted to beat you heads up, face to face. No behind the back kind of stuff or anything like that. And so that's the way we try to run these businesses. It works very, very well. It tends to be one of those things. A bad habit is one of those things that catches on fast, right?
Right.
Well, good habits do too. They're probably harder to instill, but they're contagious as well.
Sure. So you talked a lot about kind of once you have the team member on board and the training and integration. I think that's great. Let's talk a little bit about trying to get the right people on the team and the interview process. Most owners that I talk to, business owners I talk to, say that's the hardest piece because everyone agrees people are your biggest asset. But getting the right person on the bus, to borrow Jim Collins' phrase, is a little bit harder to do than it sounds most times. So through the process of your career, have you come up with some interview processes or things that you found that have worked, or some that maybe that you didn't work and failed miserably that you could share? But I think it's so key because every business is unique, and you got to find how are you going to go about asking questions that aren't just the generic ones, and more importantly, listening to answers to make sure you're making a good decision on the hire.
Well, I think that I think you have to trust your gut, but sometimes your gut will lie to you, so you have to be careful. I check references. I do my reference work. Those references are there for a reason, so you ought to check them and ask lots of questions. So I usually know a lot about a recruit before I have ever met them face to face or even over a Teams call or something. I know a lot about them beforehand. I look to see where they've worked and how long they worked there. Are they kind of a chronic job hopper?
Right.
Constantly moving. By the way, that's a pretty negative thing.
Huge red flag, right?
A resume. It's a red flag. But you can dig into that and ask, why. Sometimes they have good reasons for leaving, where they work. Maybe their spouse had to move or something like that. So you just want to ask those questions. I try to get to know recruits. I try to get to know candidates for positions and ask a lot about them personally. There's things you can and can't ask in an interview process, but you can ask people what they like, what they don't like, and where they see themselves in 5 years, et cetera. You can learn a lot about how an employee is going to carry themselves pretty quick just by asking a lot of those familiar questions just to get to know them. And I usually finish with, why do you want to be here? Tell me what it was that attracted you about our company,
Right.
about this business in particular. And you can learn a lot about somebody that way. And I would say after fielding a lot of those questions and really doing your homework and research on somebody, then it comes down to trusting your gut. We always talk about not hiring a problem. Let's don't hire the next problem. Let's try to avoid it if we can. And people will once they're talking about themselves and about their career and about what they like or dislike about employers and businesses, etc. I've found that they usually will spill the beans pretty quick, and you pick up fast on whether or not this is somebody that's going to fit in here or not.
No, I think you're right on so many points, but doing that due diligence up front, I think is important. And I've seen from experience, the more you can get them talking, right, rather than you talking, so open-ended questions, they'll reveal themselves over time.
I try to train the leadership to do that. I try to coach people up that, if you're doing all the talking, you're learning nothing.
Right.
And so listening more than you speak is such a big deal whenever you're a business leader. I think as business leaders, there's a bravado and a pride thing, and call it whatever you want. I'm in this role, so everybody needs to listen to what I have to say. I have never found that to be a good practice. I've always found that when I shut up, I learned a lot more.
Right.
And just ask pointed questions and ask lots of questions. One of the things people forget to ask is, how are you doing today? How's the day going? How's life? Because usually if things aren't going good, you find out quick, and that may affect,
so true.
Their business decisions, or their strategy decisions. If they're having a tough day, they may be Dr. No about everything. People are trying to come up with good ideas and be innovative, and you got one guy in the room or one gal in the room that's saying no to everything. We need to figure out, maybe they're just having a bad day. Let's find out what's wrong.
Well, you hit on something, right? And we actually have, in the last, let's say, couple of years, really focused a lot of this here at the firm. And that is, we all know we're human, but the bigger issue is we all have stuff, like real shit going on outside the office.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and you only work for, whatever, 8 to 10 hours or however long you work in your shift. And that's a small part of your world.
Yeah. And you can't cut that off. Right. So I think creating an environment and a culture where your people feel comfortable talking and sharing helps you, right? Because if you're having a bad day, everyone's going to have a bad day. Then you as a leader or the other members of the team, more times, if you have the right people, they're going to rally around that person and support them while they're going through whatever, because at some point it's going to be you and you're going to need and want that same support.
Everybody's got their time in the hot box. I think that's one of the reasons why I was, after COVID, so against this remote office stuff. I try to encourage people to come into the office more. We do allow some remote work, but you don't know what's going on in someone's life when they're not in the office and you're not interacting and trying to innovate together and come up with new ideas and how to make everything, at the company better. Um, and it's hard to have fun at your job when you're not in that team atmosphere.
Yep.
And so you don't know what's going on in someone's personal life when you're looking at them over a screen. So I like the interaction piece of coming in and working with your coworkers. And it's super hard to innovate when everybody's in a silo or remote. And
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I think as humans, we're meant to be connected with each other, and we talk a lot here about trying to create community. We're in this together. If you've chosen to be part of this organization, then you're part of this team, and we have goals and objectives where we want the organization to be successful, which means every individual can be successful, and you can't do that disjointed. And we collaborate better.
I think that's old school to a degree, but you have to enjoy your job. It's hard to enjoy it when you're all by yourself.
Yeah.
You're never interacting with anybody, on in one of those innovative kind of brainstorming sessions where people are throwing out ideas, and not all ideas are good. Some are going to stick to the wall and some of them aren't. But if we don't know what we're saying no to, and we don't kind of go through that process of kicking the bad ideas to the curb and grabbing onto the good ideas and running with it, then you lose that spark. So I'm big on trying to get everyone together, have a face to face. We try to make the rounds and see everyone, and we try to coach all of our leadership teams that that's what they should be doing too.
Yeah.
Get in front of your folks, make that FaceTime. One of the things we've found in the energy industry and in a lot of industries, there's been study after study on safety performance. People are safer when they know that the people they're working with care about them. And they just are inherently safer when they know they're respected, they're cared about, people care how they're doing and that they're, they're happy in their job, etc. So we try to do a lot of that. That sounds Pollyanna to some, but because to some old school folks, hey, this is your job. You just need to show up and do it.
Shut up and get it done.
Get it done and shut up and do your work. Well, there's a place and time for that too, but people have to enjoy where they work. And we have a whole young culture of people who are very connected through digital means, whether it be social media or other places, and they're craving some of that community and interaction.
Well, I think what I found the reason, or not the reason, one of the many reasons it's important is for retention. The more engaged and connected you feel, the more likely you are to stay. You and I both know that turnover is costly to a company for so many reasons. So when you create those environments where they get to know each other, leads to caring about each other, leads to being connected to the company and more likely to be retained. Hell, maybe even recruit some of their friends, and you have a pipeline of other good employees coming in because they know each other. So I think all of that, to me, ends up, if you want to look at it in numbers, you're going to save money. It's going to make you more profitable, more efficient. You're going to deliver better product service to your customer.
I think other than downturns because of commodity prices in our industry, there's probably nothing more expensive than turnover. My dad used to say, if you've got someone who's doing 60% of the job you want them to, quit looking for their replacement, teaching the other 40%. I had another mentor who I worked for who said the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, there's a lot of truth to that, and then you get some of these rock stars, these guys that are rainmakers, and, you get a Sally and she's just an all-star, and you want 4 Sallys. You wish you had 5 of them, Well, talk to Sally, because odds are she's not hanging out with a bunch of people that don't take work like she works, and
Right.
don't act like she acts, and have similar skill set. So, you want 4 Sallys, talk to Sally. She's probably knows another 1 or 2, so it's a great recruitment tool.
Yeah.
But retention is a big deal. But if you don't create that place where people are kind of fighting and wanting to work, you won't have it.
That's right.
I want to create businesses that customers are fighting over to be able to do business with us. And I want to create places where employees are fighting to get their foot in the door and be part of the team. So if you can work for that and strive for that, you can't really mess that up if you're playing that game right and trying to have that be one of your big goals. But turnover it's a killer, and so creating things that and not only create retention but also recruitment is such a big deal.
Yeah. Let's turn a little bit. 30 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. What are some of the trends that you've observed and recently, and where you see kind of things moving in kind of the energy space here in Texas?
Well, obviously, horizontal drilling and the advancements all around that, and the way we frack wells today, through the stage process has been a game changer. I can remember times in my career when I thought we found all of it.
Yeah.
The rock was too tight in all the other places, and we drilled all of the spindle tops. They're just
all the traditional wells, right?
Right, and what I learned from that is never underestimate the power of science and our engineers to go find and create new ways to do new things and unlock resources that we thought were never going to be commercially viable. It happens over and over in our industry. So I think that in my 30 years, just the quantum leaps in technological gains have been really incredible. I think I've seen different approaches to resourcing capital has changed over the years. Our industry was very debt, had an affinity for debt, really.
Yeah.
Just a few years back, and you look at the businesses today that are really performing at a high level. Debt is very low compared to their cash flow, and so low to no leverage is what we call it.
Okay.
And it makes you much more nimble as a business and a company. So the comfort level around debt has changed dramatically. And then I would say finally in the last 5 years or so, return of capital to investors has been a huge priority. It probably always should have been, but the market, the public market, usually sets the tone for how businesses are run, because shareholders and analysts and critics that are in the market say, well, we want to see growth, and we want to see your book reserves go up, and we want to see high revenue, or we want to see this or that. And that's changed a lot in the last 5 years. Return of capital has become a huge focus. That's a good thing for the industry by and large, because everybody wins when you're returning capital. And it should have never probably lost its focus. But at one time, going out and doing leveraged buyouts and accumulating a very high level of debt compared to your cash flow was not a sinful thing. And it was embraced at times to be aggressive. And I think in our industry in particular, now return of capital is a high focus, big focus. So you have technology, and improvements in technology, but the way we handle capital in our industry is probably another big one. The one thing that hasn't changed is how important people are. It doesn't matter how automated we get. It doesn't matter how efficient we get. It doesn't matter how what the technological leaps are. People still matter.
There's still a lot of hands involved in the production of oil and gas, right? Technology may help, but you got people out there, and you mentioned a couple times that the safety. Most industries and businesses don't have to worry about, something goes wrong in your industry and people die, right?
Right, that's right.
And
I kind of compare it to AI. There's a lot of fear factor out there about AI that it's going to take away jobs and it's going to limit the workforce, et cetera. I see it the kind of the flip side, because I've seen so many technological jumps within our industry
Sure.
that actually created new opportunities and new jobs. And uh, maybe the skill sets changed a little,
yeah,
but it didn't just do away with the labor force.
Yeah, well, you bring up a great point. I think oil and gas is a great example, because the one thing data and research has shown is through all the cycles of oil and gas, right? When we come out of a downturn and it goes back up, it's some technology advancement has helped less rigs to produce more, every time. And I think oil and gas is a great, example to look. It didn't eliminate jobs; it just changed the way the job may have been done.
It did, and it probably created new jobs.
Yep.
And so maybe some of those jobs that were more upstream in nature before are now more midstream in nature or more production oriented in nature. So it just kind of morphs, but I don't think it just does away with big blocky pieces of the workforce. At least it hasn't in my career.
Yeah.
So I don't think AI is going to be a lot different than that. And it could make a lot of people's job just a lot easier, and so they can do more with less, like you said.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, I really, appreciate the conversation. I want to maybe turn a little more on the personal side. I mean, you so 30 years in the industry. Maybe just quickly, how do you think your leadership style evolved over time, and what were some of the inflection points or learning lessons along the way that helped you in that leadership journey?
Oh gosh, so many. When I started out, I was gung ho. I thought I had the Midas touch. There wasn't anything I couldn't touch or build and turn it into the next big business that somebody wanted to buy out. Um, and took a couple of those to fall flat on their face, and then I fell flat on mine, and learned that leverage was a real thing.
Banks really wanted to get repaid.
Guarantees are a real thing. Banks do want their money back.
Yeah.
Investors want their money back. So yeah, I ran into a lot of tough lessons along the way. Always learn more from the tough times and from things that happen that go sideways or go wrong than I did when things were going right. My dad used to say, a drunk monkey can run this business when oil is $100 a barrel and everything's going perfect. You earn your money whenever when stuff hits the fan, and
Right.
you gotta knuckle down and buckle down, and try to figure out how to keep the company alive. So I would say, for me, I changed a lot from a kind of gung ho, we can do anything kind of attitude to really analyzing and processing more and doing more diligence and not trusting my gut right off the bat, doing some homework. People ask me about M&A a lot, and I say, some of the best deals that I ever did were ones I walked away from.
Sure.
Because
I hear that a lot.
I just didn't feel good about it. By the time I did all my homework, and that took me a while in my career to learn to do the homework, period. But by the time I finished my diligence, I just didn't have a good feeling anymore. It turned out to be for a good reason.
Right.
And did I miss some deals? Sure, I missed some ones that could have been really good, and I got cold feet and walked. But there was probably a good reason. Maybe we weren't set up to be the company that needed to acquire that, or maybe it turned out it wasn't really a good time to sell a certain asset or a piece of our business. So I learned that you're never always right. Don't think you know it all. I think when you think you know it all, you've got it all figured out, and you're that one voice in the room that won't shut up and listen. You're probably about to have your butt handed to you on a silver platter. You're getting set up for a fall. So listen, some of the greenest people you have in your organization can come up with the best ideas.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones kind of coming in and they're the outside looking in. They're a fresh set of eyes, fresh set of ideas, and
no restriction or inhibitors, right? They just come in and speak freely.
They got no filter, and they're not just going to follow a line and say, well, that's the way we always did it. One of the worst things you can say in any business is, this is the way we've always done it. Well, why? Why can't we look at a better way or a new way? And so I've learned to embrace a lot of change, a lot of ideas, listen more. I try to ask questions that get conversations going, and then I just want to sit back and listen and try to process it all. I think that's how you, as a leader, you can be much more effective listening than talking. So I try to do that. Sometimes the meeting will shut down and everyone's staring at you going, well, what do we do?
What do we do now?
And you've got to make some decisions. I think being indecisive is not what I'm talking about. Being indecisive is probably as big of a risk in any business and from any leadership role as anything else. And I've had leaders like that I worked with and around before. I've had leaders underneath me like that. And, we used to say, you can't aim the gun all the time. Eventually you got to pull the trigger.
Right.
And, but you run into people that are extraordinarily indecisive, and it's just their nature to aim. And that's risky too. You've got to be decisive, especially read the room and know when it's time to say, okay.
Yeah.
Because if you make a mistake, you can always undo it. The other thing you can do is never do it again, right?
Right.
If you make a mistake, you can say, okay, learn from that one. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to touch that. It's really hot. But if you never make a decision, or you're really slow to make decisions, you can bog an organization down. So I try to be that guy that listens intently, but when it's time to make a decision, we pull the trigger. And if we mess up, that's okay.
Well, you raise a good point. There's a model out there kind of in decision making that talks about align, act, adjust. And align's kind of that research, homework, get the group aligned, but then make the decision, act on it. And that doesn't end, right? The next is adjust. You always learn once you act. They say the plan's just as good as, a game until you get hit in the face. Something's going to change. Something's going to go unexpected, and you have the ability to adjust if you're in that mindset.
I think so. And I think good teams will do a lot of post-mortem work, post-decision work. Did we do it right? Did we make the right call? It's okay. Humility is a big, important thing in all businesses. Be humble enough to say, man, we screwed up. Or, gosh, that was a bad call. That's okay.
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do? And now how's the team going to pivot? And we always say in our businesses, work the problem. Maybe you created the problem, maybe you inherited the problem, or maybe it just was an act of God that just, caused the problem. But how are you going to work the problem? What are you going to do about it as a team?
I like that.
And so we try to, and I've tried in my career to take those curveballs that you're going to get inherently in every business and just work the problem. And man, that's when probably one of the most satisfying things running business is not the profitability, and it's not the financial benefit to everyone. At least it's not for me. It's seeing teams rally when there's a problem and overcome, and work their way through it. And then you look back and do another postmortem. Yeah. Well, we didn't make the right call initially, but boy, did the team come together and really handle it right.
Yeah.
And that's when you're most proud of your groups and your teams, and you'll be proud of yourself because you listened and you paid attention. And like I say, sometimes the best ideas are the ones just from out of left field. Somebody who knows the least and has the least amount of experience or know-how in there, and they come in with something pretty radical, and you're like, wow, why did we not think of that?
Yeah.
And it's because you're in the trench every day.
Right.
You can't see the forest for the trees sometimes.
Sure.
When you're in the business. I think a lot of leaders make that mistake. They don't do enough meditation, kind of, let me take a step back and let me really think about things, and let me look at what we've done and where I think we're going, and really take a step back and then ask lots of questions. I relied heavily on mentors. everybody should have a mentor. I don't care
Sure.
how good you are, or how old you are, or how much hair you've lost. In your industry, you should have a mentor or people you can rely on and ask questions to and say, what do you think about this? Do you
Yeah.
think we're doing the right thing here? And I mean, I still do that today. I still call up old friends and peers and folks and just say, I'm dealing with something and I'm not quite sure exactly what I want to do. I got this path or this path or this path. And what do you think?
Yeah.
And they may not give you the perfect answer, but having someone else's, um, take on it when they're outside looking in is sometimes invaluable.
And that trusted advisor, that mentor, you're so right. You never outgrow the need for one of those.
No, you
And
never do. And if you ever quit asking questions, and you ever quit kind of taking a poll, and you ever quit asking people, well, what do you think? And it could be, like I said, the newest guy in the room, and you should say, what do you think? What are you hearing?
Yeah.
And sometimes you'd be amazed by the answer. So, but I love having good industry resources and wisdom and people that I can tap and go, here's what I'm dealing with. What do you think? And when people come to me like that, I think it's important to shut down now, whatever you're doing, and give them your full attention, because they've taken a big leap of faith to reach out.
Yeah.
And that is something that is hard for a lot of leaders.
Sure it is.
Entrepreneurs.
It takes a lot of courage, right?
It takes a lot of courage to say, what do you think?
I'm not sure what to do.
I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer. Wow, you don't have the answer? That takes a lot of guts. So it's important to be, depending on which side of that you're on, just to stop and focus and say, let me hear you.
Yeah.
Let me make the time. I'm going to go to that lunch. I'm going to go to that coffee. I take a lot of students who are in business school or even working on their undergrad, or maybe it's people that are new in the industry, and they'll reach out over some network and they'll say, would you spend 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes just talking to me about my career path and where I want to go, what I want to do? And man, sometimes it's hard to say yes because you're busy and you have 19 things to do that day. But it's so important to go, sure.
Yeah.
Let's schedule it. Let's make time for it. And I'll do that, because if you don't, you'll kick yourself later because someone did it for you.
Sure.
And man,
pay it forward.
If I hadn't had that, I'd have been lost like a puppy in a snowstorm. I had good people I could call and go, I don't know what the heck to do here.
Yeah.
And it could be crazy. It could be people, even a competitor, and you call and go, I'm dealing with an issue. What do you think?
Yeah.
And if they're, a decent, person in our industry, they'll say, here's what I did when I saw the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was right or wrong or whatever. So I don't mind talking to a competitor, asking them. I don't mind talking to a banker and asking them, you spook your banker a little bit.
Right. Right.
What do you mean you don't know?
Right. Right. You make sure, are you current?
Exactly.
So Roe, those are all great points and great advice for people listening. Let me just ask you this. Well, what do you like to do just to recharge on your own personal time?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, I like to travel. I love to fish. I used to hunt a lot, and I kind of lost my zeal for that. I used to, I team roped. I rode horses and I team roped, and I did that as kind of an outlet. I play some golf. I love to fish. I love to meditate a little bit. I read a lot of the Bible. I try to read it every single day. I get a lot of meditation out of that.
Yeah.
A lot of, wisdom, and I find a lot of answers there, so it doesn't matter what religion you are or what, you've got to find an outlet. You've got to find something that takes you away. I love to eat good food.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for the next.
You and me both.
The next good restaurant. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. But you got to make some time to unplug and get away from work. that old adage that all work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy. I mean, that's so true in so many ways. And so I know guys that try to unplug, but they're unplugging about work.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really, you didn't really get away from it.
Right.
You need to get away.
Yeah.
I think being outdoors, anytime you can be outdoors, and it doesn't matter if it's a walk or what, or a hike, it's worth it to step back. And I drive, I fly a lot in my business, but I love it when I get the opportunity to just take off for, a 2 or 3 hour drive.
Yeah.
In Texas, that's not very hard.
It's not hard.
You're 2 or 3 hours from everything, seems like
Uh-huh.
half the time. I get some of my best ideas just driving down.
Sure. That's great. Well, I'm going to follow up on the food thing. So do you prefer Tex-Mex or barbecue?
I'm a barbecue guy. I like to smoke food.
Okay.
So, and I can't cook Tex-Mex at all, but I do like to eat it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm a barbecue guy. I've tried to perfect my brisket, my ribs,
Okay.
all my smoked meats. So I love doing that. That's also a great outlet, is cooking.
Yeah.
My daughter's a chef. I love to cook. I get a special day for me is I know I've got a piece of meat that I'm going to be smoking all day long.
Yeah.
It's time consuming. It's always rewarding at the end, or you hope it is.
Yeah.
It tastes good. But I get I process a lot during that time when I'm just, focusing on the meat, but my brain's still working and I'm still thinking over things and processing, Monday morning quarterbacking a little bit and trying to come up with a new idea, or, hey, we should have done this a little different or a little better. And I make mistakes all the time, and I'll dig in on those, when I'm taking a step back to cook or whatever. That's a good time to do a little self-reflection.
Sure.
And go, I could have done that better. I could have handled that better. Never too late to apologize to people
Right.
who handled something, a situation wrong or whatever. But processing over your mistake or a bad decision, a bad call. You see this in the sports world, right?
Sure.
They watch film for a reason. They watch that game. It's in the history books, right? It's done. You're not going to win it by watching the film. You lost it, but you can go back and learn a lot about what you could have done better.
For sure. That's great analogy. I love sports analogies. But Ro, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on the podcast and share your story and some of your lessons learned. Really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You got it. That's it for this episode of Building Texas Business. Don't forget to check out the show notes at BoyerMiller.com/podcast for insights and resources from today's conversation. Learn more about how Boyer Miller can help your business grow at BoyerMiller.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.